Hello and welcome. Very good afternoon. You're watching The Big Story with me, Afrida Rahman Ali. We are going to focus on the issue of the DCGI approval to the two vaccines in India, the Covaxin and the Covishield. What are the concerns around these two vaccines? What is the level of data available? Getting you all the inputs right away. A day after the drugs regulator gave its nod to the two COVID vaccines, it has now granted the Serum Institute permission to manufacture a COVID vaccine and has asked Bharat Biotech to submit the safety data with due analysis of the ongoing clinical trials. Bharat Biotech has been allowed to administer vaccine on children above the age of 12 years. The permission has been given as children above 12 years of age were part of the clinical trial of Covaxin. So there are two vaccines ready for rollout. One is the Serum Institute's Covishield and the other is the Bharat Biotech's indigenously developed Covaxin. While Covishield has completed the clinical trials and has now been given the final approval, Covaxin is still in the third phase of trials. However, the experts claim that it has satisfied the subject expert committee on various counts, owing to which the license was given. Let's in fact look at this entire issue a little bit more closely. I'm going to be joined by experts on the show. I have with me today Chinu Srinivasan, co-convener, All India Drug Action Network. Good afternoon. Welcome, Mr. Srinivasan. I also have Dr. Anand Bhan, public health expert. Very good afternoon, Dr. Bhan. Thanks for joining us. Before I come to you with the questions, I want to just bring in, for our viewers' understanding, the primary concerns that we are faced with. Questions are being raised over the approval given to Bharat Biotech's Covaxin. So All India Drug Action Network, a drug advocacy group, has questioned the approval granted to Covaxin since the vaccine had not completed, like I said, the stage 3 trials. The network has also cited lack of appropriate data for both the vaccines as the reasons behind their concerns. So I want to go across to my guests for a further understanding on this. Chinu Srinivasan, coming first to you. Of course, the larger questions that people have are with regard to safety, efficacy, ease of availability, price. Both these vaccines must satisfy the common man's queries. Right now, doubts are cast over Covaxin and also owing to the fact that it's indigenously developed by Bharat Biotech. Was it given a shortcut? Was it given a privilege in terms of getting a premature clearance without full efficacy data? On what grounds was it licensed? So that is some of the concern that the organization you're associated with has raised. I want to go across to you to understand in the larger picture, what are the points of concern that you're raising over this?
The points of concern are many, but I will just recite to you 3 or 4 major concerns. The first concern, you just said that it is being licensed for children above age of 12. That itself is a problematic thing because the protocol, clinical trial protocol says the research is being done on people above the age of 18. So you have research data coming in above the age of 18 for safety, efficacy, immunogenicity, etc. But you have license for above 12. Third thing is normally this is an unprecedented thing that you license a drug as without having any data about its efficacy. When the phase 3 trials are going on, they have not completed the phase 3 trials. And it's real kind of a perplexing thing that they have approved it and in what they call clinical trial mode. Now, clinical trial mode is a new category of thinking devised by the DCGI and the subject expert committee, which does not exist anywhere in the world, as far as I know. And probably the first time a so-called well-regulated body of a major country is approving a new drug at that, without completing the phase 3 trials. Now, let us see, what does it mean, clinical trial mode? If one patient wants to take this vaccine, Covaxin, it will be treated as a clinical trial. Now, for to conduct a clinical trial, if you look at the law, clinical trial rules under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, you have to have a clinical trial protocol, you have to register with the CTRI, you have to have an ethics committee supervising the clinical trial, and so on and so forth. And you have to periodically report to the DCGI what is happening in your trial. Now, are they trying to tell us that each individual patient who is taking this Covaxin, who is not part of the clinical trial, 23,000 people who are in the clinical trial of Covaxin, anybody else who wants to take this will undergo all this? It seems absurd to me, and I don't know. So what is the meaning of clinical trial? And then they are saying...
Okay, I get your point, Chino Srinivasan. Primarily what you're saying is that this whole rider or caveat that the government has placed saying that it will be used in a clinical trial mode is something that you are not convinced with. You're saying that this is not adhere to the best practices across the world. Dr. Anand Ban, do you agree with that? Was it done? Was this approval done in a hurried way? Because if I may just bring to your notice the kind of justification, the explanation that has come from the government on this, because by now, of course, a lot of people have raised concerns. And what Dr. Harshvardhan, the health minister, says is, for those spreading rumors, let it be known that emergency use approval for Covaxin is differently conditional in clinical trial mode. He also says that this entire thing will be monitored approval, and those who take the vaccine will be treated just like anybody else who is in a clinical trial mode. But you just heard Chino Srinivasan saying that that's not how it works. When you give a clearance, when you give a license, then all these stipulations that you are putting in is not something that comes under the regulatory approval method, Dr. Bhan.
Which made the argument that while pandemics might require expedited processes, it doesn't allow for science exceptionalism, which is to say that the fundamentals of science and regulations remain the same. If you have decided that there is a certain regulatory structure in the country, you're supposed to follow it. In fact, a few weeks ago, the health secretary had made a presentation in a webinar with civil society where they talked about two conditions under which they might give such an authorization. One is a foreign regulator giving approval and then bridging data being available from India. And the second thing is local efficacy data. But, we don't have local efficacy data, at least not in the public domain. So on what basis did the subject expert committee make a decision that they are satisfied to allow for this kind of an authorization? In fact, a few weeks ago, they asked the company for more data. So what was the nature of that data? What was that data which was submitted? What does that data indicate? And does that data indicate actually that you can allow for such an authorization? And if not, then why are we making these kind of exceptions which are globally unique? I mean, is that the kind of global innovation that we want, that, you have language which no one can decipher and is ending up confusing everyone from a clinician to a stakeholder to potentially a participant? So, how are we going to actually take a phase 3 clinical trial and convert that into a mass clinical trial by saying that everyone who gets the vaccine will be a clinical trial participant? What does that even mean? Who's the principal investigator of this study? Who's the ethics committee providing oversight? Are you going to compensate anyone who gets an adverse event? All of those are unknowns. This is territory which no one has heard about. And that is where the confusion is. All of us, I think, are supportive of Indian science, Indian innovation, and Indian vaccine industry. And, we want them to be successful. But I think this is probably pushing the envelope a little bit too far and causing a lot of anxiety around the way decisions have been made.
Okay, so you're saying this is pushing the envelope too far. This is an issue of public health. Safety and efficacy cannot be compromised with. The full efficacy data of Covaxin is not known. The government argues that there are immunogenicity data available, and it also says that the subject expert committee has done enough due diligence before giving this clearance. But like you said, there might still be doubts. And the other question is, when Covishield is all clear, when that has satisfied the various levels and there are enough quantities to cater to the first phase, why was it even necessary to introduce Covaxin as well? I'm going to come to that question, but before that, Let's also talk about what Niti Aayog member VK Paul had to say earlier, allaying concerns over this vaccine. While saying that the permitted vaccines are all safe and there should be no doubts about it, VK Paul also reiterated that one of the vaccines has been kept as an emergency option. It's like a contingency plan. It is not something that will be immediately used unless necessitated by circumstances. And even when it is used, it will be done in the clinical trial mode. And that it was included because it has proven to be safe in stage 1 and stage 2. Let's first listen in to VK Paul, and I'll go across to Chinu Srinivasan.
Vaccines that have been permitted their decision is based on science, based on norms, and based on data. We would like to assure that the vaccines to be used in the national program will be safe, are safe, and there is no compromise on the safety issue at all. People should really not at all worry about this. There are occasional side effects. These two vaccines have minimal side effects actually, and other countries are rolling out. We will roll out in a most effective manner nationwide in very, very few next days.
Right. Chinu Srinivasan, you heard that. So what we are being told is this is being done keeping the larger interest in mind, keeping the greater common good in mind. You have to cover maximum population in a certain limited period of time, and certain decisions therefore become necessary. Dr. Randeep Guleria of the AIIMS director, says that this is only a backup. So why are we even so worried about it? It will only be used if there is a sudden surge in cases. He says that this is like a backup. If we find that cases don't rise, then we stick to the SII, that is the Serum Institute vaccine. And while we are completing the first phase, for all you know, you will have the full efficacy data, so everything should fall in place.
Yeah, so why not wait for it? And what is the urgency? Because already Serum has said they got about 5 million vaccine ready, and they are hiking their production every day. So initially, it has been said that about 1 crore on the priority list will be given the vaccine, and by 1 year, it will be about 30 crores of people will be given the vaccine. So by that 30 crores in 1 year, so by say even in 2-3 months, we should know about the efficacy or otherwise of this Covaxin of Bharat Biotech. So why not wait? What is the urgency? The other thing Dr. Paul has been saying, which you didn't play it out in the NDTV interview yesterday, he was saying this is a whole cell vaccine, which is different. Therefore, it will come to use in resistant strains, like the one we had in UK, and we are all afraid of that very serious resistant strain. Yes. But this is more of a consummation devoutly to be wished, because to be fulfilled, because they are finding out kind of post facto possible uses. And this is a conjecture whether it will be useful for a new strain or a serious strain like the UK vaccine strain, etc., etc. This is a conjecture. This is an unproved conjecture. So this question of as a backup, it's kind of it just really falls on its face. So backup for what? Because we have got sufficient backup in serum vaccine, and at the rate at which you're going to vaccinate people, 1 crore in about immediately, and 30 crores in 1 year.
Okay, Dr. Bhan, where do you stand on this? Because the other argument that is given is that countries have taken liberties to change protocols as and when necessary, given their peculiar circumstances. You heard Chinu Srinivasan also saying that this whole argument about the Bharat Biotech vaccine being all pervasive, that it will also take care of the UK strain. Are you convinced by these arguments that we have heard so far? Meanwhile, Bharat Biotech has also gone and released more data today, seeing the kind of concerns and doubts that have been cast. So there is an effort to satisfy all the different concerns, but yet, like I said, individual countries do take certain measures as and when necessary, and by the time the frontline workers are covered, before it goes to the rest of the population, things should be in order.
Well, I don't think we can assume that just because frontline health workers have to be given the vaccine that we can sort of, cut corners on regulatory processes. It's good that Bharat Biotech is planning to release more data. In fact, we shouldn't have questions being asked of the process for that to happen. That is what should be routine practice, and that is well established in terms of gold standards. If you look at the US FDA decision on both Pfizer and Moderna, it was live cast, so that all of the discussion which happened, all of the questions which were asked by the expert committee there, and the clarifications which were issued were available for anyone for scrutiny, and that sort of built some level of public confidence. Now, specifically, this whole thing around mutant strain coverage, again, I have no knowledge of whether, it seems to be a theoretical surmise until we actually see data. We will not be able to actually have that confidence because we need to see that data. First of all, actually, we want to see data on the normal strain which is spreading in India, which is what we are worried about, right? We don't have the UK strain as a major component of our infection rate right now. So I think what we want is just show us the data around efficacy, and if it is available to the subject expert committee, make it public, which would sort of satisfy what the questions are. And if it is not there, then that obviously will cause some concern. This whole thing of having it as a backup doesn't add up, right? Because if you really want it as a backup, then wait for that situation where there might be a potential worsening of the situation, convene an emergency meeting of the subject expert committee, take a decision based on updated efficacy data, which should be available by then, because you have an ongoing clinical trial which has recruited almost all of its targets. So by that time, hopefully there will be at least early efficacy data available. So make a decision at that point of time based on updated data. Why do you have to do it now when you don't have that data available and when you're not planning to use it? So it sort of doesn't
I agree with you, Dr. Bhan, when you say that anybody who's going to take the jab, I mean, the first thing that the person would really want to know is that it should be absolutely safe for me. The person would want to know that its success is tried and tested. So to that extent, the first round will be the frontline workers, and today the Health Ministry has said, and the second round will be policemen and transport and government departments. So, well, by the time it reaches you and me, perhaps it will be tried and tested with the bulk of those sections. But then again, you might say that why should the frontline workers or the policemen or the transport officials have to take any risk whatsoever, if at all there is a calculated risk being taken. We leave it at that. Thank you so much, Shinu Srinivasan and Dr. Anand Bhan, for joining us in this conversation. Let's take a short break now. News and updates continue on the other side. Stay with us.